Today's daf is Maseches Nedarim, Daf Tes Zayin. We are going to start from the third to last line on Tes Vav on the Beis on the bottom. This mission is going to speak about that a shvuah is chal on something that is not tangible. And also it's going to bring l'shonis that one would make a neder that does not go into effect. It's not chal, it doesn't work. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Shavua she'eni yashin. If somebody makes a shvuah, a vow that he's not going to sleep, or shvuah she'eni medaber, shvuah that he will not speak, or she'eni mahalach, he won't walk. Asr, the halacha is he's not allowed to sleep or eat or walk if he makes one of those shvuahs. Although it's not tangible. Sleeping is not a tangible thing. You can't touch it. It's not something you could feel. It's not something you could it is something you could feel. You could feel yourself sleeping, I guess, but you can't. It's not tangible. It's not actually something that you can hold. Zok the Mishnah Vayter. Karbon lo eichal lecha. If somebody tells his friend, Karbon lo eichal lecha, so that's nothing. Because if he says, like, what does it mean to say Karbon lo eichal lecha? If he's trying to say, if his intention is to make a shvuah in the life of a carbon by saying, Karbon, you should not eat, then that's not a shvuah, because you can only make a shvuah in the Shem Hashem. And if your kavanah is to be matves the iser carbon, that you're not allowed to eat the carbon, it's also nothing, because he's saying that carbon lo echalacha dafka, I won't eat a carbon, but what you are going to eat is not a carbon. So stamazah, he's not answering anything. Ha carbon sha'oichal lecha, but if he says carbon sha'oichal lecha, I'm sorry, not. I said, but if he says carbon sha'oichal lecha, but huadin zak the Mishnah, carbon sha'oichal lecha. If he says this carbon sha'oichal lecha, so the first case he says carbon sha'oichal lecha. Second case he says ha carbon sha'oichal lecha. So also it's not a shvuah, because he's because shvuah is only if it's made b'shem Hashem. La carbon lo yichalecha mutter, and so too if he says la carbon lo yichalecha is mutter. Why? Because mashma is saying that what he's not eating should be a carbon. And we're not medayik from his words to say that what he will be eating is a carbon, will be aser. Why? Because the Mishnah doesn't hold machlalav at the shemei. And since he's not saying clearly, explicitly that what he will be eating will be a carbon, therefore it's not going to be aser. Because the Mishnah is not going with the din of machlalav at the shemei. Talk to the Gemara. Daf Zayin and Alf on the top. The Mishnah said, carbon loy oichal lecha. If it says a carbon that will not eat is mutter. So it's mashma from that a carbon sha'oichal lecha will be aser. So the Gemara mani masizan. Who's the Mishnah going like? Who is the Mishnah going like? Who's the Tana that holds that the lashon carbon sha'oichal lecha is going to help and is going to be aser? So like Gemara Meir, he's going like Meir that says carbon sha'oichal lecha is going to be a neder. Even if he doesn't say ki carbon, it seems like that's the chiddush. Even if he does not say kick carbon with a kaf in the beginning. So Gemara says that's going like Rameir. Why? Why is it Rameir? Ti'i Rabbi Yehuda. If you want to say that the Mishnah is going like Rabbi Yehuda, you can't say that. Why? Because Loishana le carbon, Loishana le ha carbon. Sure, Rabbi Yehuda would hold that there's no difference between saying carbon shaychalacha or doesn't make a difference if you say ha carbon shaychalacha. Both of them is going to be mutter, since he did not say kick carbon shaychalacha. And the Mishnah's mashma that even without saying kick carbon, it's going to be mutter. It's going to be iser, even just saying carbon. So that has to be Rameir, because Rabbi Yehuda holds so long as you do not say the kaf before the carbon, kick carbon, it's going to be mutter. So now, Frak the Gemara, fine. So we're establishing that part of the Mishnah is Rameir. So now, Ema Seifa, say the end of the Mishnah, it says, La carbon la yichalacha, mutter. If somebody says, the carbon that I will not eat, it's going to be mutter. But Tanan, we learned that says the Seifa of the Mishnah. So I would say, La carbon la yichalacha, it's going to be mutter. To a carbon that I will not eat, it means what you're not going to eat is going to be a carbon, but what you will eat will be a carbon. But Tanan, Frak Gemara, Haggadah Mutter, the Mishnah says Yad Alpha and Beis, La carbon leichel or Meir Iser. If it's saying that the Reish is going to Meir says clearly Yad Alpha and Beis that it's Aser. But Amar Rav Abba says that the reason why it's also is because Nasa Oimer Lit carbon Yehei. It's mashma that he's saying from his words that Lit carbon Yehei. And the fichach leichalacha is saying it will be a carbon, and therefore I won't eat it. So everything Gemara, no. I'll tell you, no. The Mishnah is Rameir. I or Meir before Yudalf says mashal carbon I will eat. Like Kasha, ha the Amar lik carbon leichalacha. The Mishnah before on Daf Yudalf and Beis is talking about that he said lik carbon leichalacha. And you could explain his words to mean that it should be a carbon and therefore I will not eat it. But this Mishnah over here is talking about something else. Somebody said la carbon. So it's the same words except that you have the pasach in the beginning. Instead of saying li carbon, it said la carbon. So the mashmois of the word la carbon is mashma the loy havi carbon karma. You say his intention is to say that who does not eat will not be a carbon, and there's no mashmois siser. Ad kana gamar. Next Mishnah. So now the next Mishnah is going to talk about that even though words that you use to make a neder do not help, however, certain things that do not work for neder, but they could work for shvuah. For example, shvuah la'ich. If somebody makes a shvuah, a vow, that it will not eat from your thing. Shvuah la'ich, the shvuah is chal. Why? Because the shvuah is chal, even on something that's ain't by mamish, like the action of eating. Ha-shvuah sha'ich. But if somebody says that Hashvu, I'm sorry, not Hashvu, it's Hashvu Sha'echalacha. If he uses the Lashon Hashvu Sha'echalacha, that it should be a Shvuah if I eat from you, also, it's a Shvuah. La Shvuah Lo Echalacha. If he says La Shvuah Lo Echalacha, which is mashma that only what is not going to be eat should not be Asr Shvuah, but what he does eat should be Asr Shvuah. So all these cases, Asr. The halacha is they are Asr. Zok the Gemara. So the Gemara is going to be daik in the Mishnah. Mechlal, it's mashma, the hashvua sha'eichelecha, the lo yachona mashma, it's mashma, that if somebody says, so the Mishnah said that, what was the first halacha of the Mishnah? It said if somebody says shvua lo yachelecha, that I'm making a shvua and not eat from you, the halacha is that the shvua is chal, since it's chal even davar shem mamish, like the pu'ula of eating. So is medayik the Gemara that dafka shvua lo yachelecha ha shvua she'oichalacha is mashma that the lo yachona mashma, it's mashma that he will not eat it, and therefore the noider is aser. So, Frank Gemara Vermino, I'll ask you a question on this from the Mishnah in Shavuos, Daf Yomi and Beis. It says that what? Shavuos Shetayim Shehin Arba. It says that the Shavuos that one speaks with his mouth and makes himself usher and is chayav carbon, if he does not go with the Shavuot, is two of them Shtayim, two of them that are Mefurish in the Torah, and B'tziruf to that, the Chachamim came up with another two, which are kind of similar. So it's Shtayim Shein Arba. It really turns out to be four. What are the two that you find in the Torah? If somebody says Sha'eichal, I will eat, and he doesn't eat. V'shaloichal, somebody says I will not eat, and he does eat. So you learn out from the pasuk in Vayikra Perek Hey pasuk Dalet that it says Nefesh Kisi Shava Alavat V'Sasayim L'Ra L'Hetiv. So you learn out that somebody makes a shvuah b'sfasayim with his lips, lahara, that he will not, he is something negative or bad, like he says, I will not eat, or lehetiv, to benefit himself, like he says, sha'ichal, I will eat. And Chacham and Darshan, there's another two shvuahs, and what are these? Sha'achalti. He says, I ate in the past tense and he did not eat. Visha lo yachal. And it says, I did not eat, and really we found out that he did eat. Again, so it's on the past. So Zakti Gemara. So that's the Mishnah Shavuos Daf Yomi Daf. Now Zakti Gemara. Medika Amar Visha lo yachal. Since the Tana said the cases of Oichal Visha lo yachal and Shachalti Visha lo yachalti and the cases of Shachalti lo yachalti. So it says, meaning it says the what he won't do, what he will do, he won't eat, he will eat, or ate and did not eat. Bechlal, so you see the sha'icha lecha dachon mashma. So you see from that when somebody says sha'icha lecha, it's mashma that he will eat. That's what you see from that Mishnah. And not, so the Gemara's question is bothered with the Chayyar in our Mishnah didn't say that like that. In our Mishnah it said Shavua Sha'icha Lecha means it should be a Shavua if I eat from you. Meaning he was trying to answer himself. Meaning he's trying to say that I'm going to make a Shavua that I don't eat. But the Mishnah, our Mishnah says it. When somebody says Shavua Sha'icha Lecha. But the Mishnah in Shavuos Gemara's question is mashma the opposite. When somebody says Shavua Sha'icha Lecha, he's making a Shavua that I will eat. So it's really a steer to our Mishnah. Great question. Everything Gemara. Amar Abaya. Sha'icha shtei lashonos mashma. You know what? Sha'icha is mashma. You could explain it in two ways. You could explain it that I will eat, and also like I won't eat. And it really depends on what the context is, like what's going on. So Abaye explains Hayim Sarvin Boilechol, if they were trying to tell him to eat, and he tells them Va'amar Achol Nachol, and he just says, and every time they tell him to eat, he says he will eat. Okay, fine, I'll do it. Visu, and then he says more than that. He adds on the Neider, and he says Shvua Sha'ichal. So in that case, they say Dachona Mashma. If there's people there and they're telling him eat, and he says, okay, I will, and then he says Shvua Sha'icha, I will, I'm making sure I will eat. So you say, okay, when I say Shvua Sha'icha, he means that he's going to eat. Why? Because it's coming to reinforce what he just finished saying, which was that he will eat. So now he's just making a Shvua, he's making that stronger. Ava Amar Lo Yachona, but if there's people around and telling him, when he was trying to eat, and they told and they told him, they were telling him not to eat, and he says lo yachona, and then he says shvua sha'ichal. He says I won't eat, and then he says shvua sha'ichal. So then you automatically have to explain his words, and it means lo yachona ka'amar. Although it sounds like maybe he will eat, but he means shvua sha'ichal. That I mean shvua if I will eat, meaning I will not eat. So stop telling me that you're telling me not to eat. So shvua sha'icha, I will not eat. And that's what the Mishnah is talking about, says Abaya. The Mishnah that says Shvuah she'oichel lecha is mashma, that we're talking about an isser, that he's not going to eat. That's talking about that there's people around him. The situation is that people are telling him when he is eating to stop eating. Ravashi says a different teretz. Avad, I'll tell you that she'oichel means like the pashtus, that he wants to eat. He's making sure that he will eat. She'oichel the Shvuah. She'oichel ka'amar. Savana she'oichel's Gemara, yeah, he means to say that I will make a Shvuah. And she'oichel ka'amar. The kavanah of the Tana of the Mishnah, when it's saying that he's making a Shvuah, that he's asking himself he will not eat, he really means to say she'oichel will not eat. So for Gemara in King Pshita, when the guy said she'oichel will not eat, it's pashut is asr to eat. Ma'ila Meimer, what's the chiddush of the Tana of the Mishnah? Says Rav Ashi, Ma'u the Tema, I might think when he says Ioichal, that maybe you'll say his kavanah is not to say I will not eat, and he really meant to say that I will eat. Umekam lishna hide itkalei, and he just used the wrong words. And maybe you should believe him that he had a mind to say that he will eat, even though he said Ioichal. And he should not be usher. Kamashim on the word, you don't believe the guy. You don't believe the guy that when he said the word she'oichal, that maybe he meant to say that he will eat. Rather you say, what? No, the shvuah is chal, and he's taka usher to eat. So I was like Gemara, Abai lo yamatam kor Abashi. Abai did not say like Abashi, like this last teretz we saw just said that says the Mishnah is talking she'oichal. Why? The like tani she'oichal. The Mishnah doesn't say the word she'oichal. For Rav Ashi nodei min tam da Abai, Rav Ashi stayed away from, he distanced himself from the reason of Abai that said that there's two mashmois in the words shvuah she'oichal. He said it depends really where they're standing. Are they standing around people which are telling them to eat? Are they standing around people telling them to stop eating? Why? Because Kasavar, Rav Ashi held the Sfar of Abaya, Shaloy Echal Nami Masha Shtei Lashonis. Held Shaloy Echal is also Masha Tu Lashonis. Hayim Yisarvin by Lechol, Va'amar, Lo Yachona, if they were telling him to eat, and he says, I will not eat, in a wondrous way. And then he says, Shvuah bein she'oichal bein shelo yochal hadin achol mashud amar. It's mashma that he's saying that I will eat, whether he says she'oichal or shelo yochal. So it doesn't even make a difference. He's saying it's still mashma that he's saying I will eat. And even if he says shvuah shelo yochal, we say that his intention is to say that I will eat. And you say that he meant to say, do you think I'm going to swear shelo yochal? No, I mean to say that I will eat, of course. You could also say shvuah shelo yochal, meaning would mean that I shvuah lo yachol kamar. And since Abaya holds that there is no difference between the lashon she'oichal and lashon shelo yochal, and both of them, when a guy makes a shvuah, you could say it means either I will eat or not eat. So therefore, why did the Tana of the shvuah say shvuah shelo yochal asa? You should have just said both of the cases. That it's telling him what the situation, where the guy's standing. Are people telling him not to eat, or are people telling him to eat? It has nothing to do with the fact that the guy is saying shvuah lo yochal lecha. It just has to do with where the guy's standing, what people around him are telling him. So that's what the Mishnah should say. Why does the Mishnah say shvuah lo yochal lecha? It's mashma. Anytime you say shvuah lo yochal lecha, then that's going to be a halacha. Lecha, it's not true. Elo, zok the Gemara, because of this kasher, Rav Ashi had an Abaya, Tana Paska. So he paskined, he said, Rav Ashi, that really the Mishnah, he said, he means to say she'oichal. And therefore Rav Ashi held she'oichal dachol mashma, that if you say she'oichal, it has to mean that I will eat. And you can't say the opposite, that it means I will not eat. V'shelo yechal, lo yechal mashma. Straightforward. And shelo yechal is lo yechal mashma. And that's pshat and the machlekes Abaye and Rashi, why they each do not hold of each other. That's the Gemara saying. Ad kan haGemara. Next Mishnah. The next Mishnah is going to speak about the chumras that Nedarim has and Shavuos does not. This that we saw halachas of Shavuos is more than Nedarim. So the din that we said before on Tesavav Beis, apparently that's what it's going back on. That is the chumrah of Shavuos over Nedarim. The chumrah of Nedarim b'Shavuos, and there's a chumrah of Nedarim b'Shavuos. Keitzad, what's the case? Amar koinim sukkah shani yoisa. So the last halacha what we just saw, again, let's just to recap. If somebody says Shavuos la'ich lecha, so the Shavuos is going to be chal, whereas by Nedarim, it's not going to be chal only on something that is yeshua mamash, on a tangible thing. And chayim Nedarim b'Shavuos, what is this? What's a chayim Nedarim b'Shavuos? Keitzad amar koyim sukkah shani oisa. He's asking himself on the sukkah that he needs to make, or lulav shani naito, tefillin shani maniach. B'Nedarim, it's chal and aser. The halacha is aser to sit in sukkah, aser to take lulav, aser to put on tefillin. Why? Because Nedarim can be chal to mevatel mitzvah. And if you're over and you're mekayim the mitzvah, you're over on liyachal dvar. But b'Shavuos, if he tries to ask himself these things like lulav, sukkah, and tefillin, he says, I will not do these things. Mutter, he's still mutter to do it. Why? Shein ishbam lavar mitzvah. One cannot make a shvua to be over on a mitzvah in the Torah. Zok the heilige Gemara. Choymer, we're saying that there's a choymer b'Shavuos and Nedarim. Bechlal, it's mashma from that. The neder, it's mashma it's a neder. So the Gemara is really asking a great question here. The Gemara is asking that it's mashma from the lashon zeh choymer b'Shavuos and Nedarim that by neder it's also chal in the same case that it would be chal shvua. It's just that there's a chumrah that shvua has and neder doesn't have, but not that the neder is not chal at all. So, for the Gemara, what do you mean? By v'hamutter, by neder l'maisa, the Mishnah says clearly if somebody says the same thing that they would say by shvua. What do they say by shvua? By shvua they say shvua la'ech lecha and Allah is aser. For the Gemara, you see if somebody says carbon la'ech lecha, which is a lashon trying to matis the neder, you see it's mutter katani. So it's more than just the chumrah that Shavuos has on Nedarim. It's a whole different. It's not just a stringency. It has a halacha that neder doesn't have. Neder, the Mishnah should say Shavuos is chal, and by halacha is that by Nedarim it's not that way. It's not chal. It's mutter. So empty Gemara that you're right. That the Mishnah is saying zechayim Shavuos and Nedarim has nothing to do with the din of Shavuos la'ech lecha. Rather, this thing that these words that the Mishnah is saying is a seifa de idach baba katani. It's going on a seifa of the previous Mishnah to this Mishnah that we just learned. That what? What does the Mishnah say? It says shvua she'eni yashin, she'eni medaber, she'eni mahalach, aser. If somebody makes a shvua who will not sleep, speak, or go, then he's aser. So the shvua is chal and davashim mamash. And that's when he says zechayim Shavuos Nedarim. That's taka the chayim Shavuos Nedarim, not the case of Shavuos Shalach Lecha. Because if somebody says koinim shani yashin shani medaber shani mahalach, we had in the there was a Mishnah Yadal and Beis that midaraisa it's not chal, midrabanan it's chal. So therefore you can say zechayim Shavuos Nedarim. It's going on that case. It's chal deraisa by Shavuos. However, by Nedarim, it would only be chal d'Rabbanan. So that's taka the chumrah. That Shavuos has only Nedarim. But Nedarim is taka kal. Yes, only d'Rabbanan. And that was probably Probably Gemara in the Beis. It said it's the Rabbanan. I don't think the Mishnah said that. Sagt the Gemara weiter. Chayim Nedarim b'Shavuos Ketzad. What's the Mishnah said? What's the Chumrah of Nedarim of Shavuos? If somebody says Kainim Sukkah, then it's Chal by Nedarim, but a Shavuos, however, it's Mutter. Sagt the Gemara. If Kahana Masi, if Kahana learned this halacha, Amar V'Gidol Marav, V'Rav Tevumi Masni. Amar V'Gidol Mashmuel. And if Tevuma learned it in the name of Gidol Mashmuel, Minayin Shein Nishbon Labar Al Mitzvahs. How do you know that you cannot make a vow to Yervan a mitzvah? Talmud Leimar. It says in the pasuk, Bamidbar Parak Lamed Pasuk Gimel, Ishki de Nedal Hashem Yishav Ashvor Leser Irsal Nafshay Layachol Dvari. So we darshan from these words that Dafka Layachol Dvari. You cannot be mechal your words. You cannot. If you said something, if you made a shvua, so when he gave these words, lo yachal, aval mechahu lechefti shamayim. However, when it comes to things that you are supposed to do a shamayim, like a mitzvah, it's mashma you could do. You could do them, so that's what you see. A shvu is not chal on a mitzvah. So like Gemara Maishan on neder. Why is a neder different? That you could be make a neder vatal mitzvah. The chsiv ishki der neder Hashem liyachol dvari. And we darshan from the word Hashem that even if somebody made a neder to Hashem on something that Hashem said to do, a mitzvah in the Torah, and he asked for chefetz shamayim himself, still the neder is chal. So frak the Gemara, Ibezoi Shvua Nami. Why? Because Aksiva Yishava Shvua Lashem. It says in the pasuk Yishava Shvua Lashem. It also says Lashem Shvua, and the end of the pasuk says Leachol Dvaroi. Amar Abaya says, you want to know the difference? Why we only dash in the actual word Lashem that a neder would work and not a Shvua? Because Had Amar Ana Sukkah Lai. Because by neder, he's not asking himself sitting in the sukkah. He's saying, I'm asking myself the hana of the sukkah, the pleasure of the sukkah. And since the Isser is chal the hana, therefore he's not allowed to sit in it. Because we're not imachilan la'adam davar asar like. But ha damar shvuah shleyahanam in a sukkah. But lagabe shvuah, he's saying, he's answering himself from the kiyam mitzvah. You're not answering the hana. The shvuah is that I won't sit in the sukkah. So, since the Torah was already mishabed your guf, you have an obligation to do the mitzvah. The Torah obligated your body to do the mitzvah, so you cannot ask your guf from the Mekayim the mitzvah, from a chiv that the Torah gave you. Amar Rava. So Rava asked, and this that Abaye just finished saying, that you're asking Hana. So he said, "V'chi mitzvahs lahanis no. Is the kiyum of the mitzvah considered Hana? Like, so what? So you're asking yourself by neder from having hana from the sukkah. But the mitzvahs are not for hanas adam. Mitzvahs la lehanas nenu. So even if you ask yourself hana from the sukkah, that should not have to do with the mitzvah. The mitzvah is not meant to have hana. That's what mitzvah la lehanas nenu means. You're not being over on your neder by being kind of mitzvah sukkah. Elama Rava, so therefore Rava says a different pshat. This is what it says by Nedarim, that you could make a neder to vatal mitzvah damar yeshiva sukkah alai. He's saying the sitting in the sukkah should be asur on him. So therefore, although the hana from being mekayim the mitzvah is mutter, but he's not allowed to sit in the sukkah because he asur himself for sitting, and therefore he can't be mekayim the mitzvah. So another mitzvah, yeah, you're right, you could get. But you asked yourself sitting in the sukkah. This is what it said in the Mishnah, the shvu is not chal to ask yourself to sit in the sukkah. The armor shvu shel eisha b'sukkah. He asked his guf from sitting in the sukkah. And since his guf is mechuyev in a Torah to sit in the sukkah, therefore he cannot aser himself from the chiv that Torah gave his guf to sit in the sukkah. So I see the Rishonim here discuss l'chayra. What do you mean? Making a neder on yeshiva v'sukkah is davar shem mamish. It's not a tangible thing. So how could the neder be chal? That's what we said before. The Mishnah said it can't be chal. So the Ran says that it's talking about if he says koinim sukkah liyeshiva salai, he's answering the sukkah itself le'inyan yeshiva. So therefore the sukkah is davar yeshiva mamish. There's another teretz from Taisus that since he mentioned the chayfetz, he said yeshiva sukkah alai. It's as if he said koinim sukkah yeshiva alai, and therefore that is chal, because again he's doing it on a tangible thing, the sukkah. Now the Gemara is going to go back to discuss the sort of Gidol said that you learn out from the Yachal Dvar that shvu is not chal to mevatel mitzvah. Ask the Gemara. Is it true that you learn that from La Yachal Devar, that Dafka Devar La Yachal but Lashem you could be Miyachal? That Dafka Devar, what was Rav Gidol's drasha? Rav Gidol's drasha was, how do you know that you came in Ishban Vatos HaMitzvah? Because it says La Yachal Dvaroi, that right. There's only Isser La Yachal Gam Nedarim for Devaroi, for his things, but not for the Chefzei Shamayim. There it would be mutter because it's not chal, right? That's what it says. For the Gemara, do you learn out of there? Mahasan nafkali. You learn out from somewhere else. The Tanya, we learned in the Brayso. So Yachol nishmal avatos mitzvah leibitel. Somebody makes a short in vatal mitzvah and is not avato, rather is mekayim mitzvah. Yachol yechayev. You might think it's chayev a carbon shvur spitri. Talmud loymar. Pasuk says, "Vayikra parak hey." Pasuk dal the nefesh shav about to say around the hativ that ma hatava rishos, just like doing something positive, something good is rishos. If he makes a shur to eat something that's mutter, af hara rishos. So too, making a shvur to the negative is also on something that's rishos. It means he's making a shvur that I'm not going to eat something that which technically is allowed to eat. Yatsa nishmal avatos mitzvah, so it's excluding nishmal avatos mitzvah. Somebody makes a shvur to mevatel mitzvah, like he won't, let's say for example, he would not eat matzah leil pesach, or will not sit a sukkah on sukkahs, v'loi bitel, and he is not mevatel, that is pater from a shvur. Why? Because since ein rishus b'yadai, since it's not in his hands to mevatel mitzvah, so therefore the shvur is not chal. So the chayr for Gemara, this is a limud that you find. From here you learn out that you cannot make a shvur on a mitzvah to mevatel mitzvah. So and for the Gemara, chad kral the pasuk l'ra l'hetiv. It's talking about by carbon shvua lemifterei. That is come to pater gayab from carbon shvua. L'chad lemifterei min lav the shua. Or says you're right. We talk. I have two limudim. One's coming to pater gayab from a carbon shvua. If someone makes a shvua to mevatel mitzvah. And the other pasuk liyachol dvar is coming to pater from the lav. Liyachol dvar is a lav; he'll be over a lav. So it's telling you he doesn't have to bring a carbon, and he does not get malchus af liyachol dvar. So it's talking needed two limudim to teach you these two different things.